Hello everyone, welcome to Diplomatic Briefing. Recently, Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi made erroneous remarks about Taiwan in the National Diet, interfering in China's internal affairs. In response, China issued travel and study warnings for Japan, and CCTV News Continue to Chat program pointed out that China is prepared to take substantive countermeasures. On November 16th, several Japanese media outlets closely followed developments. The Mainichi Shimbun noted that since Chinese tourists make up a significant proportion of visitors to Japan, such actions could have an impact. This could cause serious repercussions for Japan's tourism industry. In several other reports focusing on current Japan-China relations, Kyodo News mentioned that, at present, calls within China for substantive countermeasures against Japan are growing stronger. The Chinese side's measures, such as urging its citizens to avoid traveling to Japan, have exceeded Japan's expectations. A Japanese official expressed concern, saying, "We are now at a crossroads. If the situation continues to deteriorate, it could escalate into an economic countermeasure dispute." Afterwards, Sanai Takaichi still showed no sign of repentance, firmly insisting that there was no intention to retract or cancel the related erroneous remarks. Kyodo News also mentioned that a government source confirmed that there was absolutely no way they would agree to do so. However, the Japanese government is very worried about possible economic consequences if China launches countermeasures, such as restrictions on rare earth exports. Although the Japanese side has hinted at wanting to hold higher-level talks to ease tensions, it seems there is significant resistance. Although Sanai Takaichi is still putting on a tough front, she knows the situation is not good. Under pressure from several sides, the cabinet quickly sent diplomats to China. On November 17th, Masayuki Kanai, Director General of the Asian and Oceanian Affairs Bureau at Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, arrived in Beijing to hold talks with the Chinese side. According to NHK, Kanai is expected to explain that Sanai Takaichi's recent remarks on Taiwan have not changed and that Japan's position is consistent. He will also convey that even if there are differences between the two sides, they hope to avoid affecting personnel exchanges. At present, the only move the Chinese side has made is to issue travel and study abroad warnings, but this has already dealt a considerable blow to the Japanese economy. According to the Mainichi Shimbun, since Chinese tourists make up a significant proportion of visitors to Japan, such actions could have a serious impact on Japan's tourism industry. Reuters reported on November 17th that Nobuhide Kiuchi, executive economist at the Nomura Research Institute, said that after Sino-Japanese relations deteriorated in 2012, the number of Japanese visitors also saw a significant drop. From September 2012 to August 2013, the number of Chinese tourists traveling to Japan decreased by 25.1% compared to the same period the previous year. He estimates that if the decline in tourist numbers this time is similar to that year, the consumption generated by tourists visiting Japan will decrease by more than 2.2 trillion yen. Unfortunately, it is estimated that this will cause significant losses to the Japanese economy, leading to a 0.4% decrease in Japan's real GDP. He pointed out that according to estimates by the Japanese government, Japan's potential economic growth rate from April to June this year was 0.6%. The suppressive effect caused by the decline in the number of tourists to Japan will exceed half of the annual growth rate. According to statistics from the Japan National Tourism Organization, from January to September this year, the number of Chinese visitors to Japan was about 7.49 million, making it the highest among all countries or regions. Kyodo News reported that in industries in Japan with high demand for inbound tourists, such as department stores and the tourism sector, many have expressed concerns about the impact on their business performance. At the same time, many people have said they are waiting to see how the Chinese side will respond next. Due to investors' concerns about the deterioration of China-Japan relations leading to a decrease in visitors to Japan, stocks related to tourism, such as department stores, transportation, and consumer sectors, were sold off on the Tokyo stock market on November 17th. At the close, Isetan Mitsukoshi Holdings stock had fallen by 11.3%, while Takashimaya closed down by 6.2%. Shiseido, which is highly dependent on Chinese consumer spending, closed down by 9%. What about Oriental Land Company, the operator of Tokyo Disney Resort? It also closed down by 5.7%. On November 16th, Motohiro Ono, the chairman of the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan, criticized Sanae Takaichi on a Fuji TV program, saying that her understanding of security laws was insufficient, and that her perception of the Taiwan issue was also flawed. At the same event, Kenji Tagawa, the acting chairman of the Liberal Democratic Party's Policy Research Council, responded that the Prime Minister is reflecting on this, admitting that he did not fully explain the background issues and that such remarks should not occur again in the future. Japanese politicians interpret China's response differently. Some think China overreacted to Sanae Takaichi's mistaken remarks about Taiwan. The chief cabinet secretary said Japan's position on Taiwan is unchanged and consistent with the 1972 Japan-China joint communique. Senior Liberal Democratic Party members said on Fuji TV that while Takaichi will not retract her Taiwan comments, the party's stance is unchanged. There has also been reflection on the possible impact of these statements, and it was suggested that Sanae Takaichi is unlikely to raise the Taiwan contingency issue again for now. But would this outcome be acceptable to China? Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning noted that when China and Japan discussed resuming diplomatic relations, China clearly stated the three principles for normalization. The People's Republic of China is the only legitimate government representing the Chinese people. Taiwan is an inalienable part of China, and the so-called Japan-Taiwan Treaty is illegal and invalid. Mao Ning further emphasized that the four political documents between China and Japan have made clear stipulations regarding the Taiwan issue, and these are solemn commitments made by the Japanese government with international legal effect. There is no room for ambiguity or misinterpretation. No matter which party or individual is in power in Japan, they must adhere to and strictly abide by the Japanese government's commitments on the Taiwan issue. China urges Japan to adopt a responsible attitude toward history and bilateral relations, to stop crossing the line and playing with fire, to retract its erroneous statements, and to genuinely reflect its commitment to dialogue through concrete actions. At the press conference on November 17th, Mao Ning repeatedly emphasized that China has clearly expressed its demands in multiple rounds of protests, calling on Japan to immediately reflect, correct, and retract its mistaken remarks, and to stop creating trouble on issues related to China. This shows that China's stance leaves no room for maneuver. Regarding Japan's expressed hope to arrange a meeting between Chinese and Japanese leaders at the upcoming G20 summit, Mao Ning's response was unusually firm. A Bloomberg reporter asked whether Premier Li Qiang would meet with the Japanese Prime Minister during the G20. In response, Mao Ning said, "I can tell you that Premier Li Qiang has no plans to meet with the Japanese leader." If Japanese diplomats know how to read Mao Ning, they'll realize that this kind of response is quite rare in Chinese diplomacy. The language is concise, clear, and direct. Unlike previous spokespersons, she didn't add qualifiers like "for now," "during this meeting," or "at present" before saying there are no such arrangements. This reply doesn't leave any diplomatic wiggle room, and the underlying message is that China is really angry. Additionally, the media published strong commentary. China Central Television released a straight commentary criticizing Sanae Takaichi for provocative remarks about Taiwan during parliamentary questioning, sparking an uproar. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of National Defense, Taiwan Affairs Office, and the Chinese Embassy in Japan all issued stern statements and lodged strong protests. There was an outcry in Japan, with the public holding rallies demanding Takaichi's resignation. However, this official refused to admit wrongdoing or back down. He also refused to eliminate the various negative impacts of his remarks. The commentary directly pointed out that if Sanae Takaichi continues to take reckless risks, Japan will face endless trouble. The article stated that Sanae Takaichi's deliberate hype over the Taiwan issue is extremely malicious in intent, vile in nature, and the consequences are extremely serious. As a Japanese leader, in an official setting, he forcibly linked the purely internal Chinese matter of Taiwan with a so-called existential crisis for Japan. He advocates possible military intervention in the Taiwan Strait, attempting to use this to revive militarism. The article notes that Sanae Takaichi's calculations are misguided. Today, China is firmly established as the world's second-largest economy and is building a world-class military. from new weapons and equipment shown by the PLA at the September 3rd parade, to the commissioning of the Fujian aircraft carrier, South China Sea operations in Sichuan, and on November 16th, a Chinese fleet patrolled near the Diaoyu Islands. The patrols within China's territorial waters fully demonstrate the Chinese people's firm will, strong determination, and powerful capability to defend national sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity. Xi Jinping quoted that there is no shortage of rational voices within Japan opposing the reckless actions and erroneous statements of Sanai Takaichi, likening them to self-destructive tanks. The doubts and criticisms directed at Sanai Takaichi within Japan reflect the Japanese public's unwillingness to be manipulated by militarism or to become cannon fodder for it. The article concludes by emphasizing the Taiwan issue. China's core interests and the national sentiments of all Chinese people are at stake. The Chinese people who cherish peace will never sit idly by while the country's sovereignty, security, and development interests are harmed. We will never allow anyone or any force to infringe upon or divide China's sacred territory. If Sanai Takaichi remains unrepentant and insists on going down this dark path, she will inevitably suffer a head-on blow and will surely push Japan into a predicament with no way out. From the current situation, it can be observed that Sanai Takaichi's ruling coalition was already unstable, and this time she has clearly crossed the line. Many Japanese lawmakers, 3 former prime ministers, and numerous media outlets all believe she has gone too far, and the timing of these criticisms even came before the Chinese side responded. Secondly, China's strong counterattack has obviously exceeded Japan's expectations. They might have thought that China would only make a statement and nothing more, and did not anticipate that China would immediately issue travel and study warnings, among other measures. Warnings were issued, and airlines also quickly announced ticket refund services. In addition, Chinese Coast Guard vessels once again forcefully entered the territorial waters of the Diaoyu Islands, challenging Japan's so-called actual control over the Diaoyu Islands. In reality, Sanai Takaichi's ruling coalition is not that stable, and such a mess has already occurred in such a short period since taking office. For example, during the 2 sessions this March, Huang Yizhang had already warned Japanese politicians. At the time, he said, "We must sternly warn these people. Instead of hyping up the idea that if something happens to Taiwan, something will happen to Japan, they should remember that stirring up trouble over Taiwan is actually bringing trouble to Japan." You could say that the Chinese leadership had already issued a very direct warning to Japanese politicians early on. Therefore, the Japanese political world really can't claim that the Chinese side is overreacting. It was Sanai Takaichi who knowingly ran off the cliff herself. Hello everyone! In addition to videos on YouTube, Bastille Post also has videos available on another platform, Pomegranate TV. Pomegranate TV offers a lot of exclusive content, and it welcomes viewers from around the world to subscribe. Just search for Bastille Post on the internet, go to the Bastille Post website, and you'll find Pomegranate TV. Producing content requires a lot of resources, so we hope you'll support Bastille Post by subscribing to Pomegranate TV. With your support, we can continue making programs. Thank you all.